Today I'm going to teach the lesson Determining the Theme of a Story. Using details in the text to identify the theme of a story will help you understand the story's important message or lesson. Most authors want to share an important message or lesson about life, people, or life called the theme. Normally, authors do not state the theme directly. Instead, they expect their readers to infer the theme from what happens in the story. To figure out the theme of a story, look for details that show what the characters do, say, think, or feel. We need to remember this. So we learned about this in our character traits lesson 2 lessons ago. Think about how the characters solve their problems and what can be learned from their experiences. This is another really important thing to remember. The problem in the story sets up the actions of the characters. We need to examine the way that the characters solve their problem and what any person could learn from that. All right, let's take a look at the cartoon. A little boy in this cartoon is at the top of a water slide. He's thinking, I've never done this before. He forces himself to slide down, and when he gets to the bottom, he says, wow, that was fun. I can't wait to go again. So we can tell from his body language, and this is one of your character traits lessons that we learned, that he is scared. Look at what he's doing. He's holding his face. But when he gets at the bottom, he's got a half smile on his face, and he says that was fun. So it looks to me like he was glad he overcame the problem and made himself go down the water slide. I can learn from how he solved this problem was that sometimes you need to take a risk so you don't miss out on something good in life. Let's complete the chart together. The main character in the story, a young boy who seems afraid to go down the water slide. All right, we're going to follow the arrows because the natural progression of the story would start with a character and would continue with how the boy, excuse me for just a second. Would continue to the problem. That's how a normal story would progress. The problem is the boy isn't sure that he will like the water slide. Okay. Let's follow the arrows. Okay. The character learns that he actually likes going on the water slide. He learns he actually likes the water slide. And the theme, what I took away from this lesson is you don't know if you like something unless you try it. Okay? All right, let's go to the next lesson. The next story is called The Two Travelers, and it is from a story from Aesop, one of his fables. And we all know that fables are folk tales that were told thousands of years ago, and they all have a message embedded in them. So these are really good stories to practice with to learn theme. The two travelers. Two men planned a trip that would take them through wild, lonely country. They promised that if they met with any danger, they would stand by each other. To the end, said the first man. To the end, said the second man. They traveled only a short distance when a bear rushed out of the woods at them. The first man, as soon as he saw the bear, rushed to a tree and climbed it as quickly as he could. The other man, who was slower to see the bear, realized he had no time to escape. He fell to the ground, pretending to be dead. The bear came over to the man on the ground. The animal sniffed and smelled the traveler. The bear put his face right up to the man's ear. But the man held his breath, and soon, losing interest, the bear walked away. When When the bear was safely out of sight, the first traveler slid down the tree and walked over to his companion, who was now sitting by the side of the road. "Well, that was a close one, wasn't it?" the first man said. "What did the bear say to you when he had his mouth to your ear?" "It's no secret," growled the second man. "He said I should never again believe anything said by a coward like you." All right, first thing we need to do to figure out the theme of the story is go back to the beginning and identify the problem of the story. And the problem of the story is when a bear rushed out of the woods at them. Why is that such a big problem? Well, they were fearing for their lives, plus they promised each other at the beginning that if they met with danger, they would stand by each other to the end. Okay? Let's look at how they solved the problem. The first man saw the bear. He rushed to a tree. He climbed it as quickly as he could. The second man had no time to escape, so he fell to the ground, pretending to be dead. So what I'm seeing is two friends. They were supposed to stay by each other till the end, but one of them left the other and abandoned him. Now, that's how we solve the problem, and what can I learn from that? Let's go down to the bottom and fill out our chart. What do the characters promise each other as the story opens? They promise to stick by each other no matter what. Next question, what happens that creates a problem for the characters? A bear rushes out of the woods and comes after them. Okay. How does each character attempt to solve the problem? Okay, let's start with he climbs a tree. And the second man, he plays dead. Let me try to fit that in at the bottom here. He plays dead until the bear leaves him. Okay. And now, what does the second man learn about his friend after all this happens? Okay. He learns that he cannot trust his friend because he is a coward. So much for sticking by each other till the end. Okay. Claudine's tack attack. Now, this story takes place in France during World War II. It is two young girls trying to keep the Nazis from taking over their country. Claudine's Tack Attack by Nadine Blanc. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to read, we're going to identify the problem, and we're going to examine how the girls in the story attempt to solve their problem. For 3 long years, the Nazis had occupied France. By now, everyone in my village was used to German trucks driving through, carrying ammunition and supplies to the front to supply the Nazi soldiers in their battles against the American troops. From her window, my friend Claudine and I watched glumly as the trucks roared and rumbled by. Too bad we can't slow them down, I remarked one day. Claudine's eyes became thoughtful. Maybe we can. She shared her idea, and we ran to her father's workshop. These might work, she announced, holding out a can of short, extremely sharp steel tacks. Papa uses them to shingle roofs. Heading back to the road, I had second thoughts. How could two 11-year-olds slow down a war machine with a bunch of tacks? Still, I followed Claudine up the hill to a spot above the road and crouched behind an old stone wall. All too soon we heard the rumble of engines, so we raced to the road. Like this, whispered Claudine. She began flinging handfuls of tacks onto the pavement, so I threw handfuls too. Then, just in time, we ducked out of sight. Blam! The exploding tire sounded like a gunshot. Then another, blam! 2 blowouts, Claudine whispered as we crept away. After dark, we crept back toward the road. The German soldiers were still struggling with the heavy rubber tires. Better yet, the road was so narrow that the other trucks could not pass. Claudine and I had delayed 12 trucks for half the day. All right, let's take our highlighters. Take your highlighter at home, and we're going to go through and we are going to identify the characters and the problems. So the characters are Claudine and her friend, okay? The problem is, and let's change highlighters for that one. You can use the same one at home if you'd like. All right, so what they're trying to do, the problem that I see is that German trucks are driving through a village in France, and they are carrying ammunition to Nazi soldiers at the front lines of the war. And the Nazi soldiers are fighting against American troops. Now, for some background here, this is World War II, and we have the Axis powers and we have the Allied powers. The Allied powers were the Americans and the English and the French and the Italians. And then the Axis powers were the Germans and the Japanese. They were trying to take over the world. At this point, they're only trying to take over Europe. So the problem is that the German trucks keep coming through and delivering ammunition and supplies to fight the American troops. And the girls know that the Americans are their friends. So they need to stop or slow down these German trucks that are coming through their village, providing ammunition and supplies to the Nazi soldiers. All right, so make sure you've highlighted that. Let's highlight what they did to help solve the problem. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and erase because I have to erase to go down. What's this? Okay, let's go down here. And take your highlighter. She began flinging handfuls of tacks onto the pavement. So what happens when you put tacks or nails on the pavement of a street? That's right. The cars that drive over them will have their tires pop. So Claudine and the friend both throw the tacks. How does the story end? Okay. Exploding tires. The girls end up delaying the trucks for half the day. That means they slowed them down. They didn't stop them permanently, but they did slow them down, which was giving the Americans more time to get their equipment ready. All right, let's go down to our chart and fill out our chart. Make sure you have everything highlighted. All right, let's take a second. I want to let you answer these questions by going back to your text and looking at what we highlighted together. So question 1 says, which statement best explains why the girls wanted to slow down the German trucks? Choice A, the girls did not want the Nazi trucks to take French supplies back to Germany. B, the girls wanted to make trouble for the German troops who were occupying France. And let's keep in mind, we're looking for the best answer. Okay. C, the girls wanted to help the American troops steal German supplies that were being carried on the trucks. Now, when you get to a choice that you are somewhat sure of but not positive, you need to go back to the story and reread that part of the story. You don't have to reread the whole thing unless you want to. But some of these answer choices that are given to you are so close, but they're not completely true. So you have to verify by going back to the story and confirm that the statements are true. D, the girls wanted to slow down the trucks delivering supplies to soldiers who were fighting American troops. All right, so make your choice. I'll wait just a minute for you. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and answer this question, and I'm going to show you the elimination process that I use when I answer my multiple choice questions. Get my pencil here. The girls did not want the Nazi trucks to take French supplies back to Germany. Well, when I read back at the top, it says nothing about taking French supplies back to Germany. What it said was carrying ammunition supplies to the front for the Nazi soldiers in their battles against the American troops. So I can eliminate choice A. And I do that with my pencil by putting an X through it, because it's not even a true statement, much less the answer for the question. B, the girls wanted to make trouble for the German troops who were occupying France. Now, when I went back and I looked at my story, I thought, well, throwing tacks in the road is making trouble for the German troops. However, this part says the girls wanted to make trouble. And I'm thinking, no, that was not their intention. Their intention was not just to make trouble. They had a very specific purpose in mind when they threw those tacks on the street. And it wasn't just making trouble. So I'm going to eliminate this question, or this answer choice. C, the girls wanted to help American troops steal supplies that were being carried on the trucks. This statement is absolutely false. This never happened in the story. I know that because I go back and I reread. I go back and I reread. I always want to make sure when I choose or eliminate an answer that I've already gone back and checked it. The girls wanted to slow down the trucks delivering supplies to the soldiers who were fighting American troops. If I went back to the top of my page, the previous page, I would see that I actually highlighted the problem, and this was the problem. So I'm going to circle that answer. Let's go to the second question. Which statement best describes how events in paragraphs 5, 6, and 7 are important to the theme of the story? And for that, we're going to go back to the previous page and look at 5, 6, and 7. And if I think to myself, what happened in these 3 paragraphs? These 3 paragraphs tell the story about 2 girls who do a very risky action by taking tacks and throwing them in the road of the Nazi trucks. Now, back in these days, the Nazis had a goal that was to take over everything and everybody. So interfering with something that the Nazis were doing was very dangerous. That could end up in being killed. It was a horrible risk that these girls took. This part of the story tells me that the girls were successful. Even though they took a big risk, they were successful, and they did slow down the Germans, which was part of their goal. So let's go down and see which choice matches that summary I just said about 5, 6, and 7. Which statement best describes how the events in paragraphs 5, 6, and 7 are important to the theme of the story? Get my pencil ready. They show that the girls grew tired of looking out a window. There were no events and no details that indicated the girls were tired of looking out a window. As a matter of fact, I don't know that they were looking out a window at all. I think they were hiding in the bushes.